Christian Amanpour in a two-part special beginning tonight on ABC. Christian goes back to the Holy Land to take us inside the history and mysteries of the Bible. And Christian, you met with one scientist who says there's actually proof that the great flood that took away Noah's Ark existed?
Well, as you can imagine, historians, archaeologists, discoverers are always trying to figure out, were these stories true, what aspects of them were. Now, nobody really believes they'll ever find an ark. I mean, for obvious reasons, wood, decay, etc. But Robert Ballard, who found the Titanic shipwreck in 1985, believes that there is evidence of a massive flood about 7,000 years ago, which is when the Bible situates Noah's story, and he thinks it's in the Black Sea region of Turkey.
In, for example, the flood. And not only the geological features, the age, the fossils. The fossils appear all at the same time. And it has stunned scientists, and I went through this process myself.
Part of that is because of the language that we see in the passages that directly attest to the flood in Genesis chapter 6, 7, and 8 in the post-flood events of Genesis 9, but also in the other places in Scripture where this is mentioned, it is consistently affirmed.
What you see here is very widespread layers. This is not normal, local, slow deposition. It's more what you'd expect from catastrophic activity as you'd have in a major flood.
Covered with water. Genesis says the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. So if the flood was truly global, wouldn't there be a lot of evidence? I'd heard of a scientist who had spent over 40 years studying this question. When I spoke to him, he said he had a great place where we could see evidence for the global flood. Steve, I got to admit, I've been here several times, but every time I come here, it is breathtaking.
Besides being at home, Grand Canyon is my favorite place on earth.
Yeah. So, Steve, tell me, what do you see here?
When we look at Grand Canyon, we see the inside story to the ground beneath our feet. And we kind of have a layer cake here, don't we, of strata that have been eroded for our benefit to see the inside structure of the earth. These same layers are also in Colorado. We're also in Illinois, also in Pennsylvania.
So when you say sedimentary strata, you're talking about the layers that we see?
Yes. So the lowest layers are formed first. Those are sediment grains that were mixed, separated, and flowed in here from different directions and accumulated one on top of another. And then, of course, naturally, they convert to rock.
So you're saying that the solid ground we're standing on right now, if we went back in its history, it'd be liquid?
Yes. So the ocean is doing some amazing things, and water of incredible power is depositing the layers we see in the canyon.
What do marine fossils on the top of Mount Everest tell us about the biblical flood? Well, we find fossils of marine creatures in limestone near the summit, which means that this area must have been under the sea in the past. Everyone agrees that the top of Everest was once under the sea. However, many people do not associate these rocks and fossils with Noah's flood because they think there is not enough water to cover the highest mountains. However, they are not considering how the flood changed the Earth's topography. The mountain ranges formed at the end of the flood. With vertical earth movements towards the end of the flood, the mountains rose and the water flowed off the continents into the newly formed ocean basins.
Anthony Carboni here for D News, and in 2010, construction workers widening a highway found a whale graveyard in the middle of Chile's Atacama Desert, over half a mile away from the ocean. They found the remains of 75 whales, including 20 perfectly intact skeletons, on a stretch of land 240 meters long. Now, that is the length of more than 2 football fields. Most of the fossils are from baleen whales that were about 8 meters long, but they also found a sperm whale skeleton and the remains of extinct seabirds, tusked dolphins, and aquatic sloths, which sound like an absolute nightmare creature.
The other area, 600 kilometers away, and do some investigation there as well. I will work in collaboration with local scientists. What we do when we find important things is we publish it in serious books and publications and journals where we can show serious, rigorous work done. Once the scientific community knows, we can make it available to the general public.
You can get a bone bed if you have, for example, a catastrophic flood and it covers an area where people and animals live. Then if you came back years later, you'd find some bones there, but you wouldn't find anything like the scale that we find in the fossil record. When you find a bone bed like these, and there are many of these in the Cretaceous, it certainly pushes you to the conclusion that there was a major catastrophic process going on. This is not just life as usual.
And that layer that you're
organic sedimentary rock, which is coal. As you can see, my hands are getting all black, and this is a property of good quality coal. Before we go into much detail, let me give you some context. So coal forms from the accumulation and preservation of plant materials, usually in a swamp environment, meaning a forest wetland. It is an ideal geological condition, that is the combination of plant materials and water all mixed up nicely and facing the perfect amount of
God instructs a man named Noah to build an ark. The length was to be 300 cubits and the width 50 cubits, roughly 150 meters by 25. Today there are 2 life-size replicas of an ark in the world, one in Holland and one here in Kentucky. It's fascinating to see how much wood it takes to build an ark, roughly 14,000 trees, and yet how solid it appears. Sadly, only the 8 members in Noah's family make it into the ark before the rain starts to fall. Soon the earth is covered with water, and the flood continues for 150 days before the waters start to recede. Today, there is a lot of evidence for the flood in geology if you are looking at it through the lens of this cataclysmic event.